You guys can be seated. All right. Man, those words that we sing, a lot of times we don't think about them a lot. And we like to just sing words, and we just kind of go through the motions. We kind of do our own thing. But the reason we sing to God is because He's holy. That's why we sing to Him. We sing to Him because He's holy. That's the only reason we sing to Him. He wouldn't be worth singing to if He was like us. Do you guys get that? If God was just like you and me, He wouldn't be worth us lifting our eyes and our mouth to sing stuff about Him. It just wouldn't be worth it. Nobody in this room is worth it for me to go, you are holy, you're awesome, you're amazing. Nobody's worth those kind of words from all of us together. Only God is. He's so different than us. So what we do is we come to this place and we see how different He is than us. And then what we want to do is we want to say, God, that's what you're like. Change us to be more like you. That's what you're like. You're that loving. Change us to be more like you. You're that kind. Change us to be more like you. That's why we come here. That's why we hang out in this place together. It's because we want to see Jesus clearly, and then we want to ask Jesus to change us to be like what we're seeing. Be like Him. Now, if you guys have been hanging out with us, you guys know that we've been talking about earthquake. All right, so we've been talking about this for 3 weeks. I just want to review a little bit with you. Week 1, and we can show the slide. Week 1, we talked about earthquake, and it means being totally consumed by God. That God would enter into our lives. He would shake us at the bottom of who we are, the very foundation of our lives. He would shake it so hard that everything else on the outside would change. Just like when there's a tsunami, there's an earthquake happening out in the middle of the ocean, and it shakes the ground so much that the waves come up over the land and totally change the landscape. And we want an earthquake to happen to us. We want Jesus to crawl into our skin and to totally tear us apart, and that nothing we do, not the way we think, not the way we talk, not the way we study, that nothing we do would be the same after we encounter Jesus, that we would be totally consumed by God. Then in the second week, we talked about that the earthquake should result in feeling the weight of my sin, understanding that my sin killed Jesus. My lying, my cheating, and my pride killed Jesus. Jesus died on the cross because you and I do bad stuff. That's why He died on the cross. If you and I didn't do bad stuff, Jesus didn't need to die on the cross. But Jesus went to the cross and had nails driven through His arms because you and I lie and cheat and are disrespectful and are rude and are self-centered and only care about us. That's why Jesus went to the cross. So we need to, if we want to encounter Him, when He fills our hearts with His love, we begin to feel the weight of our sin. And then we celebrate God's work. Why? Because the cross wiped away my sin. The cross made me clean. Right? So we feel the weight of our sin, and then we celebrate. And what's the first way that we celebrate when we become a Christian? You guys remember? Say it loud. Telling everybody. What's the first way to tell everybody? Say it loud. Getting baptized. That's right, getting baptized. Because baptism is a celebration. It says, I'm alive. I used to be dead, but I'm alive. You go into the grave and you come out of the water. You're alive. So when you begin to feel the weight of your sin, when you turn away from the way you were going, you get baptized. And then for the rest of your lives, you tell people, you celebrate God's work in your life. And then in week 3, we came across a crazy idea that when God reaches into my life, when He tears me apart on the inside, something happens to us as a group of people. Not just by myself, but as a group of people, something happens to us. And what did we find out? Outrageous love and togetherness. guys remember that last week? Wasn't that crazy to you that they shared everything in common? That you would say, hey, Grace, this is mine, but it's also yours. Hey, Bree, this is mine, but it's also yours. DeMarco, whatever I own, you own. Whatever you need, I'm going to take care of. And I challenged you, and really I'm challenging us. I challenged us that when we come to this place, our thought should be what? What does the person next to me need? How can I serve the person next to me? How can I make sure? How can I make sure that Rainey has everything he needs? How can I make sure that Tracy has everything he needs? I don't come to this place just thinking about me. I come here thinking about you. And that's because Jesus is working in my heart. And there was a big challenge. Because most of us come to this place week after week after week thinking only about me, myself, and I. And that's the way we live most of our lives. Me, myself, and I. But when Jesus shakes up your life, when you've had an earthquake experience, when you felt the weight of your sin, and you celebrate the cross and that you are a new person, you can't just think about me, myself, and I anymore. You think about us. And that, guys, is a big, big thought. It's a big thought. Because when we're us, when we're together as us, we can change our communities. When we're together as us, other people who don't have us look in from the outside and go, I wish I had that kind of friend. I wish I had that kind of family. I wish somebody knew that I was hurting. I wish somebody knew that I was lonely. I wish somebody cared about me. But see, when Jesus climbed into your life and you're a group of people who love Jesus together, you walk the planet going, it's about us together. And what do you need? And what do you need? And what do you need? And how can I love you? And you? And you? And I don't care your skin color. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care about anything. I don't care what kind of clothes you wear. What do you need and how can I serve you? That's what it's all about when Jesus climbs into your life. Now tonight, week 4, as we continue to talk about earthquake, what does it look like for God to shake the foundations of our life? The title tonight is Mission Impossible, which is why we saw that cool little clip. Mission Impossible. Now let me tell you why we're calling it Mission Impossible. You see, the guys we've been talking about in the Bible, these guys that were following Jesus, these guys that had an earthquake experience, then 3,000 people joined them together. Here's the deal. Things were not just all easy for them. In fact, things were really hard. Their families didn't agree with what they were doing. Their friends didn't agree with what they were doing. Their friends thought they were crazy. The government didn't like what they were doing. So everywhere they turned, it was like an impossible situation. Because if you were my friend, and now I follow Jesus, the friend would say, you're out of your mind, Chuck. And then the government looked at me. If I followed Jesus, the government said, you got to stop following Jesus, Chuck, or I'm going to kick the crap out of you and throw you into prison. That's what happened to these guys. So when they began to follow Jesus, it wasn't like, oh, life is so easy. I follow Jesus now. It's amazing. I just go everywhere with Jesus. It's so nice. No, it was mission impossible. I mean, it was tough. It was hard. Government's trying to crush you. Your friends think you're nuts and you're crazy. But you've seen Jesus and you love Jesus and you're following Jesus. But everything around you says, I'm going to kill you. It's mission impossible. So I want to check out, why do you think that is? Let me just ask you that. Why do you think that God didn't just go, oh, Kimmy, you believe in Jesus now? It's easy. Poof. Have a good life. Hey, you believe in Jesus. Good life. Make it easy. Why didn't God do that? Why did God, after you begin to follow him, when life shakes you at the very bottom of who you are, why is it that you run into a mission impossible type of situation? Why does God allow your life to be hard? Why does God allow you to run into situations like a brick wall where you're like, oh my goodness, I'm about to be killed. I don't have enough money. My parents are about to get a divorce. Nobody in my family loves me. I'm lonely. Why does God allow impossible situations in the people who follow him? Why does he allow that to happen? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Mission impossible. Because whether you believe it or not, when you follow Jesus, Jesus will put you in impossible situations. And I'm going to show you one right now. So Peter and John are walking along. They're doing their thing. Government hates them. The people hate them. They're doing their thing. And they go to the church to pray. And they're on the way to the church to pray. Peter and John, these are two guys who follow Jesus. They're the leaders of the church now. They're on the way to the church to pray. And on the way to the church to pray, they run into a guy who's lame. You know what it means to be lame? You know, somebody who can't walk, right? I mean, their leg is like crippled. It's like all gnarled up. You guys ever seen somebody like that before? They're like sitting there, man, their leg is like all messed up and gnarled up, and they're like, and they walk up to this guy outside of the church. And the guy goes, he looks at him. And they look at him. And check out what the guy says. He says, seeing Peter and John about to go into the temple, which was the church, he asked them to receive alms, which is money. So he says to them, hey, you got some money for me? Hey, bro, you look at me. I can't walk. You got any money for me? I'm totally lame. Do you have any money for me? Now that seems basic, right? That seems pretty normal. If somebody is crippled, if they can't walk, and they're homeless, and they're sitting outside the church, and they see someone coming to the church, how many of you had that experience? Somebody asking you for money. They're walking in, and they're like, hey man, you got $1 for me? So that's what these guys do. They see Peter and John. They say, hey, do you got any money for me, brother? And Peter and John direct their gaze at him and said, look at us. So Peter and John look at the dude, and they're like, hey, look at me. And he looks at him. That seems kind of weird. Hey, give me some money. Peter's like, look at me. I was looking at you. Okay, so they're looking at each other. And then he expected to receive something from them. Check out the next line. Check out the next line. But Peter said, I have no silver and gold. I don't have any money, guy. I don't have any cash on me. How many of you guys have had that experience? Somebody asks you for money. He's sitting there on the ground. And he's like, hey, man, you got $1? And you're like, sorry, man, I don't have any money. And you don't. You don't have any money. He goes, silver and gold have I none. But what I do have, I will give to you. Now, what's he saying? He's saying, man, I'm not rich. I don't have anything to give. I've got nothing. I've got absolutely nothing to give you. You're crippled and you're poor and you're asking me for money, but I have absolutely nothing to give you. Anybody ever felt that way about life? Like someone said, hey, man, could you help me? Maybe your friend said, hey, can you help me? Maybe someone in your family said, hey, can you help me? And you felt absolutely helpless. You couldn't help. You saw a problem. You saw an impossible situation. And you were totally helpless. You couldn't do anything about it. Anybody had an experience like that? Maybe when a good friend of yours was sick. Maybe a good friend of yours was really, really sad because something happened in their family. Maybe somebody in your family was going through some terrible experience. And you felt totally helpless. You did not know what to do or how to help. You had nothing to offer. That's where Peter and John are. I don't have anything to give you. I don't have any silver. I don't have any gold. But what I have, I'll give to you. What do you think Peter and John had? What do you think is the one thing that they knew they had? The love and the power of Jesus. They knew they didn't have any money, they didn't have any gold, they didn't have any talents, they didn't have any ability, they didn't have any influence in the government. They didn't have any special powers or abilities except one thing. They had the power of Jesus in their lives. That's all they had. That's all they had. And he says, what I have, I will give to you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up, walk. And he took him by the right hand and raised him up, and immediately his feet and his ankles were made strong. Now here's the first thing I want to say tonight. God's going to ask you to do impossible things. When you follow Jesus, he's going to put you in impossible situations. He's going to ask you to do things that you feel you literally cannot do. You're not smart enough to do it, you feel. You don't have this education to do it. You don't have the strength to do it. God's going to ask you, as you follow Jesus, God is going to ask you to do impossible things. He's going to put you in impossible situations where things are difficult and hard. And he says to you, you need to trust me. And you're going to say, but I don't have anything, God. I don't have anything. I don't have any abilities. I'm kind of insecure. I'm scared. I don't know what to do in this situation. God, I don't have anything to give. I'm a nobody. And that's exactly the point. Because outside of the power of Jesus and the love of Jesus in your life, you are a nobody. Outside of the power of Jesus and the love of Jesus in your life, you are a nobody. You can do nothing by yourself. I don't care how smart you are or how much education you have, how good a student you are, how funny you are. You can do nothing outside of the love and the power of Jesus. Anything good you try to do by yourself, the Bible says, is like mud. You can do no good thing outside of the power of Jesus. So they say, I got nothing. But what I do have, Jesus, I'm going to give to you. He said, get up. And the guy got up. Now check out the result. And this is why God puts you in impossible situations. You feel like you have no abilities, no talents. God says it doesn't matter because it's not about you. It's all about me. And then check out the result. Because this is why God asks people who seem to have no abilities to do impossible things. And this is why God's going to ask you to do impossible things. Check out what it says next. And leaping up, he stood and began to walk. And he entered the temple with them, walking and leaping and praising God. This guy was having a party. He was dancing. He was laughing. He was shouting to God, oh, God is awesome. I used to be lame, but God raised me up. I used to be homeless. I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything, but God has rescued me. He was singing to God. He was worshiping God. He was dancing. He was having a party. And wouldn't you? I mean, if you used to not be able to walk, if you were blind, if you were sick, and the power of God raised you up and healed you completely, wouldn't you start the party? Wouldn't you celebrate? Yes, you would. Of course you would, because it would be awesome. And the result, check it out. And all the people saw him. Now, do you think that's an accident? All the people saw him. That's an amazing thing. See, here's this guy. He used to not be able to walk. He used to sit by the outside of the church, and everybody every day used to walk by him. Oh, you need $1? Here's $1. Every day they used to walk by him. Just go by him every day, every day. And one day, the dude leaps up off the ground, and he's praising God, and he's worshiping God. He's going crazy for Jesus. And all the people are looking at him and going, what just happened? all the people saw it. And let me tell you something. When God puts you in an impossible situation and you rely on Him and you say, I have nothing to give, I don't know what to do, but God, you want me in this situation. You want me to do something, but I don't know how to do it. I can't do it by myself. God, I need you. Help me to do it. What I have is only you, God. So you've got to do something amazing here. And when God does what only God can do, other people look in and go, what just happened? See, it wouldn't be an amazing thing if Peter threw dollars into the thing. Why? Because anybody can give $1 even if they hate Jesus. I can throw $1 in the can. On my worst day, I can give somebody $1. But only Jesus could raise him up. And Jesus did. And all the people saw it and were amazed. And they were like, this is crazy. And they began to ask each other, this is weird. This guy was lame. He was sitting on the ground, and now he's walking. This is really weird. And they started talking to each other, and a big crowd began to talk, and there began to be this kind of sound around the church, and people were talking and going, what's going on? This is really weird. And then Peter saw it. And check out what Peter said. Peter saw it. He saw all this confusion, all these people who saw it and were talking to each other. And he said, men of Israel, why do you wonder at this? Or why do you stare at us as though by our own power or our piety, piety means my good works, me being a good person. He says, why are you staring at us as if my power and my being a good person is what healed this guy? See, the answer is Peter didn't have the power to make him walk. And even if Peter had been a really, really, really good person, Peter couldn't have made this guy walk. See, God doesn't use you and ask you to do amazing things and impossible things because you're a good person and because you got it all together and because you've been a Christian for a long time and you come to church every Wednesday. Okay, now God can use you. Man, if you love Jesus, if you're following Jesus, He's going to ask you to do something impossible, something you can't do in your own power, and something you can't do just because you're a nice person. Something only God can do. And check out what he says next. It is the faith that is through Jesus that has given the man this perfect health in the what? The presence of you all. Not a secret thing in a closet. See, Jesus doesn't show up in impossible situations in the secret. Jesus shows up in impossible situations publicly so that other people can look at an impossible situation and go, whoa, there is a mighty God, because only God could do that. Wow, you were about to lose everything. You had no hope, and a mighty God showed up and rescued you. See, God puts you in impossible situations and asks you to do impossible things so that you and everybody around you can look at that situation and go, whoa, there really is a God. There really is someone different than me who has power I don't have, and love that I don't have, kindness that I don't have. There is a God, and He's very different from me. Now, I don't know if you've ever had an impossible situation like this. I don't know if you've ever been in a moment where you've been sitting by yourself and going, God, if you don't help me, I'm in trouble. God, if you don't help me, I'm going down here. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that. I don't know if you've ever had a moment where your world was falling down around you and you needed God so badly and it seemed so impossible. But let me tell you, if you haven't had an experience like that, get ready, because it's coming. But I bet that some of you have had that kind of situation. You've had moments where you were in your room and you were like, please, God, help me. I don't even know what to do here. And maybe in that moment, you just curled up in fear. And God would say tonight, you don't have to do that. When you're in an impossible situation, trust me. See, God's already done the impossible, which is to take you and me, dirty, sinful people, and make us white as snow. He's already done the impossible. There is nothing left that God could do that would be harder than making you and me clean and white as snow. That's the hardest thing God ever had to do, was to come down on a cross and be killed and for his blood to sink into the ground so that you and I could be white as snow and every sinful thing could be clean. That was the most impossible thing. So God says, whatever impossible situation you're in right now, you're not alone. And he says, I can do it. You just have to trust me. You just have to rely on me. Now, guys, I've had different impossible situations in my life, but I just want to leave you with one as an example. A lot of you guys know that I used to live in China, and China sounds like a real exciting place and a lot of fun, and it is. My first year in China was incredibly lonely. Incredibly lonely. I didn't know how to speak Chinese. I didn't have any friends. 7 million people lived in my city and none of them liked me. Okay? I mean, it was a scary time. And I was all by myself. And I remember in those first couple months being really desperate. Because I don't know if you've ever felt that way, being totally alone. Nobody to talk to, nobody who speaks your language. You don't know where anything in the city is. You are scared to death because if you get lost somewhere in the city, you don't know how to get back to your apartment. I don't know if you've ever felt that way before, but that's kind of a scary feeling. You're like, I don't know any of these streets, and there are millions of people around me, and I can't even ask them any questions. It's scary. And I remember begging God, I don't know what to do here. I thought I came here to tell people about Jesus, but here I am. I'm lonely. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. And God, in my situation, brought a friend who moved in right next door to me. You wouldn't believe it. And he wasn't a Christian, which was awesome because I got to tell him about Jesus. And for a year, he was my best friend. He lived there for 1 year. And he was my best friend. We hung out. We had lunch together. We ate dinner together. And he was rough. He hated Jesus. But he was the only friend I had. And I got to tell him about Jesus. He would drink every day. He'd drink bottles and bottles of beer, and his breath smelled like beer, but he was the only friend I had. And after a year, I had some other friends, and he went back to America. And I thought, man, God, thank you for bringing me that friend. And then when I went home, I saw him in America. And when he walked up to me, I hadn't seen him for 2 years. He walked up to me and he said, Chuck, tell me how to become a Christian. And I couldn't believe it. He said, Chuck, I'm done drinking. I'm done messing around. I'm done living a hateful, selfish, bitter life. Could you tell me how to be a Christian? And I thought, after all this time, you were the last person I ever thought would be a Christian. And you want to become a Christian? I couldn't believe it. See, God does impossible things. You have friends that you think they will never be Christians. You have hateful people in your life. You think they will never like you. You have situations in your family you think it'll never change. But I'm telling you, when you call on God and you say, God, I need your help. I have nothing. I need you more than anything. Please rescue me. Please show your power in my life.